Welcome to the Hopcast. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, and I'm on board Milwaukee's streetcar, the Hop. It's all about connections, it's all about community, and it's all about moving Milwaukee forward. All right, welcome to beautiful downtown Milwaukee. Welcome to the Hopcast. Again, we're filming to start this episode along the route, right across the street from a streetcar station. Very special episode today. Making our streets safer, it's a job for us all, right? You'd all agree. Without a doubt, public transit, street design, the many tactics and efforts that's happening at the City of Milwaukee right here at the Department of Public Works are working to tackle the challenges and present solutions to make driving, walking, biking safer for us all. TMJ4 News in Milwaukee has a year-long commitment to covering safer streets and presenting stories that help reduce reckless driving. So today, it's a special Hopcast, partnering with TMJ4, the City of Milwaukee, and the Milwaukee Streetcar. We're going to examine solutions. We're going to talk about everything that the City of Milwaukee is doing, what citizens can do, what's happening on the roads. It's going to be a very special episode. We're starting here at the Department of Public Works. And here, it's Milwaukee. Yeah. It's safe streets. It's a summer. The sun's shining. So here we are. I'm here with Tim Vetcher, who is the news director at TMJ4, Gerald Kruschke, who is the commissioner of the Department of Public Works here at the City of Milwaukee, and Steve Shamraz, anchor reporter at TMJ4. So first of all, Gerald, thanks for taking the time out of your day. I know you're busy, tons of meetings and tons of calls, so for doing this, we really appreciate it. Just tell us about yourself. That's always my standard intro question.
Sure. So obviously I'm the Commissioner of Public Works. My previous position was a city engineer, so really passionate about roadways, road design, bridges. So the organization is set up in multiple different facets. We have a water utility, we have infrastructure, roads, sewer, and we also have the operations, is how do we remove our snow within the public right-of-ways. We have like 2,200 employees right now.
Okay.
But our main focus over the past couple of years has been reckless driving and kind of the discussion we're having now. And how do we stop that and how do we assist the public on reducing high speeds on roadways and stop fatalities? Mm-hmm. And the HOP is like one of our catalytic basically projects that started in 2018 to basically get more cars off the roadway, get people in public transportation. So right now we're going through a transition in the department where we're injecting over $20 million over the next couple of years to get into reckless driving from, making it safer for people to cross the roadway. So it's an exciting time right now.
Yeah. Good. So when we talk about reckless driving, just that definition, obviously there's many different types of reckless driving, whether you have a drag race down the street or you have someone maybe like me that's going 5 or 10 miles over the speed limit occasionally, or you have a distracted driver on his or her phone. Are there different strategies to address different types of behavior?
That's a tough question. No matter what we do from a design aspect, we're never going to stop that 1%. We're never going to stop the person from going 100 miles an hour. I don't think any infrastructure project is going to stop that person. Right. And a lot of it comes down to education. So I think if we took a strategy, it's how do we train the public not to drive that fast? When we look at every roadway that exists in the city, some are narrow, some are wider, some have boulevards, some don't. And what we're trying to do is make it uncomfortable for all drivers, including ourselves. I admit I tend to go 5 miles and over. I just think it's a culture change right now that when anybody who's driving, they're like, I don't get a ticket unless I'm going 7 miles an hour or larger, because that's just been put in our thought process. And starting to change that mindset. But then what we can do from an infrastructure standpoint is just narrow it up, get to the intersections where we see the most of the incidents occurs because you have crossing traffic, is make them slow down, make it, if there is a crash that occurs, make sure it's not a fatality.
Right.
So it's a tough question. We'll never stop the 1%, but let's just get the general public. So if everyone on the roadway slows down, the reckless driver behind you has no other option but to slow down. So that's kind of the thought process behind doing these type of improvements.
Right. Okay, thanks. Curating stories and reporting about key issues in the community has enormous impact. Yeah. So talk about why tackling this subject is so important to the station, especially to commit the resources, the reporters, for an entire year to one topic.
Well, I was shocked when I came back to Milwaukee after having been gone for 20 years to see the driving that I saw. As I said, living in Menominee Falls, I drive probably a 10-mile stretch of Capitol to and from work every single day. The driving behavior that I see on my drive and my commute is and has been shocking for the past 3.5 years since I've been working at TMJ4. Aside from that, what I see behind the wheel myself, just the stories that we cover day in and day out, and the carnage done by people driving recklessly. Late last year, it just hit us that we had to do more. We couldn't just be doing daily stories on the who, what, where, when, why of reckless driving crashes. Sadly, deaths, and again, all the carnage that comes from that. So we committed to this year-long initiative called Project Drive Safer. Steve has really been the face of it, but we have a whole team working on it. And I've been really proud of the team and the reporting we've done. I think we've had a lot of success. We were not naive enough to think that we would solve reckless driving. That was never the goal. And clearly that hasn't happened. In fact, maybe anecdotally, it's even gotten worse. But there have been a lot of successes, and I hope we get to talk about those together.
Very good. All right. Thank you, Tim. And Steve, thanks for being here. Thanks for taking time out of your day. So talk a little bit about just a general umbrella question on your reporting for this series. What have you learned? It's a big question, I know, but before we walk over to the streetcar station.
We did a lot of things with good intentions over the years, and there were always unintended consequences to even the best intentions. From the way our cities are designed to the way the criminal justice system handles some things. We've done a lot of things. We did not get here overnight. We won't solve the problem with one thing. There are so many little decisions made over decades that need to be addressed one at a time. And we're just kind of peeling back the onion to see all those different layers of the problem. And hopefully the people responsible for each part of it can address that part, and we can move the ball forward. You're not going to fix everything by putting bump outs on streets. You're not going to fix everything by throwing more people in jail and taking licenses away. It's just not going to work. But we had good intentions, and we did a lot of these things over the years. So, let's be well-intentioned now,
for sure,
and look back at the things we did that didn't quite work and address them going forward.
Yeah, I mean, key points there. It's responsibility, intention, storytelling, and information. All that has to come together to make everything safer for everyone. One item, I know you did a report on the driver's licensing process, right? And I think a lot of people don't realize that driver's ed isn't in all the schools anymore.
Nope.
And that goes back to 2004, I believe. So you got to go to a private company, or you got to do this, you got to do that. So that's changed dramatically how kids are educated about driving. What did you learn through that reporting?
Well, I think the biggest problem in the driver's licensing process is, did you take a road test?
I did.
Yes. Took a road test.
Yes.
Yep,
I did.
absolutely.
Many years
You
ago.
do the road
Right.
test. A parent can opt their child out of the road test in Wisconsin. Why would you do that?
Well, it started during the pandemic.
It started
but we're
during the
one of the
pandemic,
very few
but it's
states
been
that
continued.
Still
keeps
allow
it.
it post-pandemic.
Yeah.
Which, and I think we're seeing these chickens come home to roost with the decision in the early 2000s to no longer fund driver's ed in Wisconsin. So, as Steve was saying, reckless driving, we didn't get here overnight. It's multifaceted, why the problem is what it is, but certainly the lack of access to driver's ed in our schools is a big part of it.
Yeah.
There are people, and the crash we had just a couple weeks ago, the deadliest reckless driving crash the city of Milwaukee has ever seen, we had an unlicensed driver there. She'd been driving without a license since get-go.
Yeah.
There's a barrier to getting the license in the first place, so some people are just saying, why bother? I'm just going to drive. What are they going to do to me?
Now, I will say, and this is one of the successes of Project Drive Safer, is we're getting traction in Madison for funding for driver's ed to finally come back. It's going to end up being 20 years after the fact, but it's in the budget. It appears it's going to stay in the budget, and so we're going to have $6 million, annually for kids to get driver's ed in Wisconsin. So that's huge. It's not going to be here tomorrow, but possibly by, I would think, the 2024 school year, it might be back funded for free and reduced lunch, kids who qualify for that program would then qualify for free driver's ed.
Right.
Can we tease the
Solution.
fundraising we're going to do in the next month or two? I mean,
Yeah, we absolutely
we're
can.
going to try and raise some money to help put kids through driver's ed.
Yeah, we're going to try and bridge that gap. You know, the government moves slowly, so again, probably not until the 2024-25 school year. So in the meantime, we're going to be doing some things with raising money in partnership with the Urban League to help it become more affordable for kids to be able to do driver's ed.
It's fantastic.
good.
That
Yeah,
is
that's
one of
great.
that's one of the challenges we heard is just
Yeah.
the costs. I mean, if you're a low income family, you can't afford. I mean, my son is 17, so we just put him through the driver's ed process.
Right.
I tested him myself, and his friends, by the way. They have we have family, and so I took them through driver's ed and just kind of scored them.
Yeah.
But it is. I mean, there's a lot of families that do not have the resources or the time to get kids behind the wheel. So it's
It's an absolute barrier. I think it's
Right.
about, as I understand it, $500 minimum.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
you know, there are a lot of families that's just not affordable.
All right. I want to talk a little bit about some of the kind of the key intersection street targets, if you will. If you could just kind of pick a street or a project or two and give us a general overview of maybe what the process is and how you take it holistically and, hey, we're going to do this, we're not going to do this.
yeah, that's a tough
Yeah,
question.
that's a
to
huge
answer.
question. I
mean,
like the umbrella question.
Yeah, I mean, really, when we look at reckless driving, it's all over the city. So what we're
Yeah.
trying to do is we're trying to analyze where's our high pedestrian injury network, where's your most vulnerable users, and how are they getting injured and dying. So we have projects that are multifaceted. So we have state and federal aid funding, which those processes can take anywhere from 2 to 5 years. So if I get funding tomorrow, you're not going to see that down the road, and that impact, people want it now. So what we've pivoted to, we have our local programs where we really start just doing striping. We've seen it on Martin Luther King Jr. Drive, just up on the north side here, which basically takes roadways from 2 lanes to 1 and puts a turn lane in the middle. We've seen about a 15 to 20% reduction in overall speed. We've seen, I think you can look out here, we've done protected bike lanes on Kilbourne Avenue, kind of basically shrinking that footprint and providing bicyclists and pedestrians a buffer from parked cars. The things we've done lately is we've got a lot of ARPA dollars that came in from the American Rescue Plan Act, which is fantastic. We have tax incremental funding that we've gotten. We've had state give us their ARPA funding dollars towards reckless driving, and our local dollars. We're trying to do things pretty quickly, and if you've seen on Capitol Drive or if you've seen on Oklahoma or around Humboldt Park, we're doing what we're called pinned-on concrete bump outs. So what it's doing is it's kind of making those intersections a little more uncomfortable for cars to go through and shortening that path for a pedestrian to cross. We're putting an island, so if you have to sit in a pedestrian refuge island in the middle of a roadway, you have some sort of physical barrier, so a car diverts around that. Walnut Avenue that's going on right now, and that's a state and federal aid project, we're doing separated raised bike lanes, just to keep,
Like the ones on Beecher?
Exactly. Beecher was the first time we did that. And we're trying to figure out how to produce, and when I say it's a protected bikeway system, but it also relates to reckless driving, because when we kind of shrink that footprint where cars are going to go, along with parking, how do we keep on providing vehicles the opportunity to do whatever they want. So it's changing a mindset. So there's a bunch of, we're everywhere right now. There's $20 million worth of work. You can be on the south side in Oklahoma, which is a project that's starting. We have Van Buren, which is a TID project down here. We have all over the city. Capitol Drive, we're trying to really work with the state on connecting highways, which are a little more, that's where we see a lot of the high speeds. Along with our speed limit reduction program, which we're going through right now, is trying to reduce the overall speed limit. Right. So if you're going 7 miles an hour over, okay, maybe it's 32 instead of 45.
Yeah.
Which, every mile an hour you can reduce in speeds and vehicles could save a life, and that's kind of our goal now.
Yeah. Well, it's another common point. The streets are for everyone. You have to balance. It's bikes, it's pedestrians, it's public transit, it's cars, it's strollers, it's wheelchairs. They are there for everyone. And as we kind of walk across to the streetcar station, I want you to just talk a little bit, please, Gerald, about the role of public transit in making safer streets and reducing reckless driving.
No, absolutely.
Here comes one now.
Yeah.
There we go.
Want to run for
it? Yeah, let's go. All right. Welcome aboard the Hop, the Milwaukee Streetcar. Appreciate the short walk from your office, Gerald. Easy, efficient, good use case for the Hop, right? Easy to get to work and from work. Let's talk a little bit about technology. Obviously, we're on the streetcar here, but there's technology solutions to making safer streets, right? For personal use, from the city standpoint, inside cars. Can you just maybe I'll address like technology and what role it can play and what role it does play.
Yeah, so tied to reckless driving technology, one thing is this, we'll start with street lighting. I mean, changing over from an LED, from a higher pressure sodium light, makes it brighter, so it makes people see intersections. We look at the vehicle they're on right now, the Hop. I mean, streetcar is not a new concept. It was in the city, years ago, but modern technology from the way it operates now and in using signals and preemption is new. What we look at, technology tied to reckless driving is also what's in our vehicles. I mean, there's lane detections in car manufacturers. If you're going to basically get out of your lane, you kind of hear a beep, or if you have speed control that's sitting on there. So those are things that we've noticed, but we've kind of focused on what does signal timing look like at intersections. It's something we can control, like at hours of the day. If it's a peak hour during rush hour in the morning or an afternoon, how long are those lead times between cross traffic coming in? Or how long is a green arrow when you're turning left? Things we've kind of tried to identify recently, and I think every day we look at technology, there's something new coming out, from cameras on poles, red light cameras that are something that could possibly be coming down the road, license plate recognition materials for parking. So all these type of things, it's all coming now. I mean, it's a constantly changing process.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know, the red light cameras are going to be coming to Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's
based on our reporting at the legislature in Madison. It seems like a non-starter, but
it's there.
I guess you never
It's
see
there.
that. No,
Right, it's
certainly
there.
the technology exists.
Yeah. It's another possible solution, right?
We've done reporting on some of the things you talked about. Our colleague Tom Durian, who's a car guy, went out to the Subaru dealership recently and profiled the advancements in technology as it relates to, automatic braking. We have, did we lose about 3 dozen pedestrians every year due to collisions and crashes with cars. I think that's an example, Jeff, of technology that could hopefully bring those numbers down.
Yeah, very good. All right. So, what if someone, whether a driver or a pedestrian, if you see reckless driving, what's that course of action from a citizen standpoint? Is it a phone call? Is it a text? It is like what is that? What should we all do as citizens?
Man, I've called 911 on people I've seen on the freeway driving like fools.
Yeah.
Just report to the sheriff, tell them the mile marker, what the car looks like, and where they're going. I don't know if anything has ever come of that, but I've done it.
But if you see something,
No,
report it.
that's the right answer, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I guess it depends on the level to which they're driving recklessly, but somebody who's truly egregious and extreme speeds, 911 is the answer. Maybe a notch or two below that, you can take down vehicle information, license plate information, convey that to the non-emergency number later when you're parked and not driving. But I think for the ones who are truly endangering other drivers on the road, and that's a true emergency, you call 911.
Yeah, I mean, and otherwise what we're doing is when you see it consistently in certain areas or certain roadways, is get a hold of the Department of Public Works or a local alder person so we can identify. I mean, it's hard to stop something that's happening at that 1 second, so to stop that is impossible, but if you constantly see the public sees it, then we can take measures to try to address that and add it to the list of all the intersections we have across the city. Hey, how can we improve this or slow cars down in those particular situations? So
If you're a passenger, it's on you to tell the driver,
Exactly.
hey, what are you doing?
yeah, that's using the public. I mean, yeah, when you're sitting with someone like you and your buddy, and he decides or she decides to go, 10 miles an hour.
Cool
what are you
down,
doing?
yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that's been one of I think, the more interesting stories in our initiative is Rebecca Clough, our colleague, interviewed a psychologist on if you are the passenger in a car that's driving recklessly, what can you do? And if you go to our website, you can see that story. But the answer is you got to speak up. You can't just sit there and say nothing. You got to do something, which for some people isn't the most comfortable thing to do. But that psychologist walks people through, if they ever find themselves in that situation.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, without a doubt. You have to provide the information. It may be uncomfortable, but hey, from a neighborhood standpoint, the older people are there to serve the citizens. So report information. Talk to your older person. I always say it's a great thing to get to know your older friend, right? Sit down, have a cup of coffee, and talk about what you want changed in your neighborhood. It works.
Absolutely.
Let's, Steve, I always love this question and this framing from a news lens.
Okay.
When you're reporting, is it to get people to change behavior? Is it about information? Is it about maybe shock and awe? Is it about a combination? In real time, when the drivers change, we say hello and thank you for
Hey, how's it
getting us
going?
where we need to
See
be.
ya.
So just from a reporting lens, and especially when you're doing something this important, as news is,
It's about shining the light where it needs to be put, giving people the information and hoping that they take action based on what you've taught them. You know, it's all about shining a light.
right?
From the biggest investigative report to the smallest things. All we can do in television is put our lens on the thing. And hopefully we're putting our lens on reckless driving every day for a year. At least one story every day for a year. We're able to kind of worm our way into people's brains, because it all starts with the individual mentality. And if we can start to impact those individual mentalities, other things can come from it.
Right. And Tim, you're very much taking this issue to the streets. I saw your crews outside the Milwaukee Public Market, right along the streetcar line the other day, with a big whiteboard say, "Hey,
Yeah.
give us your thoughts about driving in Milwaukee."
Yeah.
So, talk about kind of the extension of the reporting and what's next in the series.
Well, what's next is, we kind of alluded to this back at DPW headquarters, is this, we're calling it Adopt a Driver. It's in partnership with the Urban League. It'll be the entire month of September. And again, we're going to raise money to help remove that barrier for kids to attend driver's ed. We know they're going to get some government funding here probably late next year, so we'll be able to bridge that gap so kids can go to the driver's ed program that is offered by the Urban League here right away in the fall, and then in the spring, and depending on how much money we raise, that'll determine how long and how many kids get to participate. So that's kind of the next evolution of Project Drive Safer, is this program, which we're calling underneath Project Drive Safer, Adopt a Driver.
Very good. Okay. And Gerald, let's talk a little bit about kind of just the weighing of all the financial considerations that the city has to consider. Talk about the investment in safer streets and everything that's being done through your office, and what the impact is, and kind of how you weigh those decisions day to day.
Yeah, so I think we kind of mentioned before, how the city was built years ago was really car focused. So the changes we're making aren't, sometimes a little more expensive, but what's the expense of someone's human life? And that's what we kind of figure. There's no price tag on that. So we want the right of ways to actually be places where people are outside, not necessarily vehicles, and not focused towards that, but when people are walking, they're biking, they're pushing their strollers down the road, or even sometimes we have active streets where people are playing catch in the middle of the road in a neighborhood street. Those are things we want to see, and not just to prioritize single occupancy vehicles. So we've been working with the state government just on millions and millions of dollars. We have like $250 million in projects coming up over the next 5 years. And all of them, to one aspect or another, is putting a complete street mindset behind it. If that's a wider sidewalk, if that's a protected bike lane, if that's a roundabout, an intersection instead of a signalized, where we see those basic T-bone accidents that come in all the time, or crashes. So we're trying to hit it from every angle, from how much can we get from the federal government, how much can we get from the state government, what's the impact we can do today, and we kind of mentioned that earlier, is just simple paint and posts, which are really inexpensive to the city, are making an impact. And 15-20% reduction in speed and intersections is huge. So every day we keep on talking to the federal government, our state partners, allowing us to do this stuff on, we'll call it arterial roadways, your major roadways, where we see a lot of that high speed, but I drive in my neighborhood, and I still see people going 35, 40 miles an hour when kids are riding their bikes, and it's just got to stop. So just every roadway we look at, we just got to make it smaller, make it uncomfortable. I want to have my kids go play kickball outside in the middle of the intersection, and then the car comes down, you stop. I mean, everyone's seen Wayne's where once in a while, like, car, and you move out of the way and come back in. Now, I would be afraid to do that because someone's barreling down 30, 40 miles an hour down the roadway. So those are things we think about. Just, let the people utilize the right of way. It's theirs. I mean, it's not the city's, it's the right of way for everyone. So, and to utilize that in different ways. Yeah. But funding's a challenge. I mean, we've been blessed to have, the federal government put a lot of injection into infrastructure and dollars there. We're still trying to capture that every day. And we want a Safer Streets for All grant. This last round, we're putting in for raised grant funding consistently. and we'll see what's awarded in the future. There's a lot of money floating on there.
Yeah.
Kind of feel like in a cash cage and trying to grab as much as you can,
Right.
because you don't know what's going to go away.
But you want to make sure you spend it the right way.
That's
What's
exactly
the
it.
biggest return on the investment you can get?
So we have some projects that are getting 100% funded by the federal government. So I mean that's nothing. There's zero tax levy impact, which is fantastic. What we see out of that is the better intersections, the accessible intersections that are saving lives, and that's just, you can't put a price tag on it, which has been great.
From the downtown neighborhood, you're looking at Van Buren next in terms of a complete overhaul, correct?
Yeah, so Van Buren's a project that we're in the design phase right now, and luckily we're fortunate enough to get some tax incremental funding for that, because obviously in our own city tax levy dollars it's tough. There's money available there, and what we're creating there is, we're having bus islands, and we're having protected bike lanes from Wisconsin Avenue all the way down to Brady Street. That's a long corridor, and have one lane in each direction. So it's going to be, and it's not really ripping up the entire roadway either, because a lot of that pavement's in good condition. So we're basically just kind of retrofitting on top of that to keep costs down. Because if we're going to tear out that entire roadway, we're talking $15-20 million, but we're doing this project for like $3 million, and it's going to have the same impact, the same look, which is great. That's what we're trying to look for all over. See how can we use our dollars wisely to get more impacts.
Very good. Well, we're going to turn the corner here through the historic Third Ward. I always like to do a couple final destination questions as we get closer to City Hall. Kind of just ending on a lighter note, if you're driving or you're walking with your AirPods in, what are you listening to? Like, you have a favorite song or a favorite podcast, or are you just listening to the news all the time?
No.
Speak for yourself.
I unplug as often as I can.
Okay.
I have two very high energy dogs, and they need a lot of walking.
All right.
I put the earbuds in and I listen to music. Wilco has been in rotation a lot lately. Some Gomez the other morning on a walk. Alternative,
Okay.
Get a little country. Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats got me through a walk the other day. Jason Isbell.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, when you got two dogs dragging you, you got to have music that'll keep you keep you moving.
Watch the HBO documentary on Isabel. It's really good.
I will.
It's
yeah.
great. Yes. Tim?
Well, the difference between the news anchor and the news director is that I am listening to our news in the car. I've got about 30 minutes, in the car each way, so it's really, my responsibility to make sure that I'm watching as much of our product as I can. So when I'm in the car, I'm not watching. So I can assure you that I'm not
that's good.
watching TV, but I am listening. So I will stream our news through my speakers and listen to the news, so I know what we're covering, who's covering it, how we're covering it. I told that to my doctor the other day during my annual physical. He looked at me. He thought that was incredibly sad.
This is why your blood pressure is so high.
I give myself a break on Fridays, so I will listen to a good podcast or Pearl Jam Radio on Sirius XM.
All right.
Is my go-to channel.
Very good.
Well, if I'm driving in the car, it's always sports talk radio. Big sports
Okay.
fan, so
Nice.
just obviously with NBA draft last night, or if there's something going on with the Packers, I want to know. So it's if I'm walking around, in any major city, it depends on the mood I'm in. I can listen to 70s rock that my dad had kind of incorporated into my brain, and then I was in Washington D.C. yesterday, just listening to 90s alternative, so I appreciated the Pearl Jam reference. So really, it depends on if it's rainy, then maybe I'll try to be upbeat because it's not so great to walk outside. So it changes from day to day.
Good. Very good. And my final question, I always end the Hopcast the same way, but one, I want to give you all the opportunity to talk about something that maybe you didn't address, but also define success. And that can be a general question, personal, professional, safe streets. Define success.
Success, that's a good one. And what I have seen just in my tenure with the Department of Public Works is communication. That's, to me, defining success. And we communicate lots of ways, and one part is listening as well. We talk about reckless driving as a whole right here in this discussion, even talking in transit, is communicating reckless driving and how bad it is to the community. When I talk to my staff, it's how do they talk together. So to me, that's the one word I have it up on my board every day is just communication. That, to me, is the key to success with anybody. How do you communicate with other people, your supervisors, people underneath you, and just general public? So it's that one word, to me, that's what it means, success.
Tim?
I would agree. I'd like to think that Project Drive Safer has helped foster the communication on a lot of different levels. Could be state, county, city, other stakeholders. I hope that our reporting and our initiative around reckless driving has elevated the conversation, brought some groups together that maybe weren't communicating previously. I think there's other things that we can point to as successes. Certainly, if this driver's ed funding makes it through and is ultimately signed by the governor as the budget for the state of Wisconsin, that would be an enormous success. We've had some other legislation make it through earlier in the session. Those have been successes for sure. So, but I think the thing that we're most proud of is just the dialogue, the communication that we see. We get tremendous response from viewers, and we hear from our stakeholders, both in government and in the community. So I think that's what we're most proud of, is that Project Drive Safer has hopefully enhanced the communication around reckless driving and bring everybody together towards solutions.
Steve?
The thing I didn't get to talk about, and the thing I'm hopeful for, is all about good intentions. People make decisions constantly with good intentions. Decisions, we decriminalized driving without a license in Wisconsin. People went to jail for that in the past. It's now just a ticket. Good intention. Is it working? Let's talk about it. Street design. We had a lot of good intentions over the years. We've got basically state highways running through neighborhoods in the city of Milwaukee. Good intention, yeah. Let's look at it differently now. As long as we get people thinking about the decisions they made with good intentions. We talked before we even started today. I did reporting about 12, 13 years ago about the parking kiosks. Every parking space was numbered. You walked to the kiosk, you did the thing. My reporting was, these kiosks really suck. And to hear you admit today, that was not a good idea. It was a great intention at the time. It was a way to modernize the system quickly and easily, where you're not installing thousands of new digital meters. You put numbers on spaces and scattering kiosks. It was a fix. It was a quick fix. It was a good intention. Benefit of hindsight, that didn't quite work out the way everybody thought it would. There's hope there. When you can look at the decisions that were made in the past with a critical eye and say, we made this decision to do this, what actually happened, and then course correct based off of that, that gives me hope that the work we're doing in Project Drive Safer is actually going to stick, because we're getting the people who made these decisions to look at them again.
Very good. That's great. Creative solutions through communication. That's what it's all about. And building connections. I appreciate everyone taking the time to ride the streetcar, talk about safer streets in the city of Milwaukee. Gerald, Tim, Steve, enjoy the rest of your day in beautiful downtown Milwaukee. Watch the Hopcast on YouTube. We'll syndicate it on all of our social channels, and tune in to TMJ4.
I'll give you a retweet.
All right, very good. We like it. All right, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.